Here we are, you guys. Episode number 1 of the Because of Sales podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Whether you're tuning in right when this launched or years after it launched, I think it is very important to start with an episode like this. This is going to be a little bit different than all the future episodes. In the future episodes, we'll probably have guests on to come and share their story and how they've done great things in their industry and the life that has brought them. This one is going to kind of be more about setting the stage for what Because of Sales is, why it exists, why I decided to start this, and everything you need to know to fully understand what Because of Sales is. Now, really quick, we'll go through a agenda of what you can expect in this video. There's also probably going to be chapters linked at the bottom, so you can skip around if you feel like doing that. But as you might be able to tell from the title, I'm going to, for the first time ever, tell the full story of how sales made me a millionaire in my 20s. This happened about 6 months ago. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into why Because of Sales exists. I'm going to give you the full rundown of when I first got into sales and then how I leveraged into better and better opportunities that got me the result that you probably clicked on this video to see, which is becoming a millionaire in my 20s. I'm going to go through the thought process that I had when I was deciding that sales was the vehicle and how I compared it to other things. I'm going to list out, I think it's 9 or 10 general concepts that helped me get here. I'm going to list out some concepts that I would reaffirm in hindsight. So if I could just go and tell my former self, hey, keep doing this, hey, stop doing this, things I would say then. I'm going to give some really practical tips for the new or newer people who are just either getting started with or trying to figure out how to make sales the dream opportunity for them. I'm going to go over some regrets, not too many, but definitely have some regrets. And with all those, I'm going to give real world examples, my personal experience, and why those things are true to me. So without further ado, guys, episode 1, Because of Sales podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I intend on putting everything I got into this business. I'm super excited to grow it and see it through long term. And your support means everything. Now, before we get too much further into this, I want you to go down to the first link in the description and subscribe to our newsletter. Because of Sales is a newsletter and media company leading with the newsletter. So the newsletter is going to have a breakdown of this entire podcast, but it's also going to have some really cool stuff like recent events, tips and tricks, and a few other things that you're probably going to want access to if you are a sales rep currently or you are considering sales as a career for you. The newsletter is going to be a weekly edition. I'm thinking on Wednesdays. And if you see a full-length podcast coming out, then there's probably a newsletter going out not too long after that. We are going to be on every platform. I really want to nail distribution with Because of Sales. We're going to be on Instagram, X, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, probably some other ones. So we're going to try to go really hard. Oh, LinkedIn. We're going to go really hard with content, both written, long form, short form, video, long, medium, short form. And I want to be everywhere because sales changed my life in a way that I never could have imagined given the type of person I was before I got into sales. And I just feel like I want to let more people know just how much it can change their life as well. Now, the reason I'm creating Because of Sales and the reason I want to run with this angle that we're running with, which is using sales as the vehicle to achieve your dream life instead of just making sales your life. Because if you make sales your life, it can become pretty miserable after a certain amount of time. It can be fun in the beginning. You can make more money than you've ever made before, but it won't last. And so all of the most successful people that I know, if we're looking outside just financials as well, they've found a way to turn sales into the vehicle that provides them the life that they want, that allows them to go and excel in other things like, family, religion, physical health and fitness, other hobbies. The right sales role will help you unlock the life that you want outside of just a paycheck. And I want to show you guys that. If you're already in sales, there's going to be a bunch of value for you in this newsletter. I also want to kind of turn this into something where, despite whatever market you're selling into, what kind of sales job you have, you can get value from what we're posting out here. I don't want to run with the sales training angle because there's a lot of sales training out there and you can just go on YouTube and find it yourself. Sales training doesn't create you that lifestyle that I'm talking about here. This is going to be an industry agnostic platform, meaning we're going to talk about every kind of sales because previously I was in the high ticket space and I was in the roofing space and I've done a few different things. And I've talked about that a lot, which is cool, but there's a lot of value in a lot of different types of sales jobs. And I didn't want to be pigeonholed anymore talking about just one type of sales job, because the reality is I've seen sales in almost every industry change lives in a way that I think is worth highlighting. Just because I do one type of sales, just because I'm in a certain industry, doesn't mean that one is for you, doesn't mean it's for your friends. And so we're going with that industry agnostic approach. So we want to help you get started or progress your career. We want to give you insight into other industries. We want to share cool front running things with AI and strategies and tools that you can use to make your job easier, to be better at it, to create more leverage in what you're doing. So that way you can make as much money as possible and then go do what else is important to you. So guys, again, in this podcast here, I'm going to tell the story of how I became a millionaire at 26 years old by getting a sales job in less than 5 years, from Amazon driver to millionaire in that time frame. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the sponsor of this podcast and of the newsletter that is tied to this, which is the Serial Sales Community. If you know me, you might know about the Serial Sales Community. In the beginning here, guys, I'm trying not to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into my own pockets to make this successful and get this off the ground. So I'm going to cross promote here. Serial Sales Community is the community I've been running for 3 years now, working with people to break into or excel through the 1099 remote sales market. You might know it as remote closing, remote setting, high ticket sales, 1099 remote sales. Nobody really calls it that, but that's what we do. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of Miami balcony boys. There's a lot of kids who kind of overhype this. I feel like they give the space a bad rap. And so our whole thing is just taking that real and raw approach, the actual tangible tips and practices and access that helps you secure and sustain high quality 1099 remote sales jobs. Again, been doing it for 3 years. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wins and proofs of like people getting hired and commissions, and have a ton of interviews on my channel. Serial Sales is my personal channel. You subscribe to me there on YouTube, Instagram, X, all those platforms. But anyways, guys, if you guys are interested in 1099 remote sales job, beginners earning anything from like 3 to 5, 3 to 6K per month, pretty conservatively. And then if you are more of a established closer, account executive, you have sales, like actual selling experience and closing experience. We've seen guys make all the way up towards 40K per month. Not an average result. 7.5 to 10 to 12K is pretty average if you just get around the right people. So anyways, if you want to check that out, link is going to be below as well. I'm also going to have this stuff plugged on the newsletter, which again, if you're not on the newsletter yet, go subscribe. That is the first link in the description. I want to do something where I talk a little bit about today and a little bit about what sales has done for me to show you the life that sales can give you. And then we're going to reverse engineer it, going all the way back to the beginning. So sales has created me my dream life. Again, 7-figure net worth by 26. I'm now 27. I've been able to find and craft and sustain healthy relationships, all with my fiance, my friends, my family. I got to buy my dream car, which is a Porsche 911 Turbo S. I have schedule freedom. Now I still work. I work a good amount, but I have the flexibility to decide when I work. Since getting into sales, I've been in some of the best shape of my life, excelling in different things at different times. I've been able to take awesome trips all across the US, recently getting back from a mastermind in Japan, which was that was like a dream trip. To be honest, my first international trip, going all the way to Japan, would not have been able to do that if I did not get into sales. I've been able to afford the best masterminds and team members that allowed me to create more leverage through this vehicle of sales. I've been able to give my fiance a dream proposal in Central Park, New York City, and a wedding that's coming up next year. Lastly, I've been able to start a business like because of sales and go all in and not have to worry about, hey, am I going to be able to afford rent or groceries this next month if because of sales doesn't work right away. So guys, I don't want this to be like, oh, look at me, I'm bragging, my life is awesome. But none of this would have happened if it wasn't because of sales. I promise I didn't plan to say it like that, but it worked. It worked pretty well. And I'm just one example here, but in reality, there are a lot of people who have done what I've done. There are people who have done a lot more than what I've done. And so on this podcast, on this channel, in this company, I'm going to have people in that are sales reps. I'm going to have people in that are business owners. I just want people that can confidently say the life that they have built for themselves at one point in time, was because of sales. So many of the highest level guys that I know started with sales, or they're still doing sales. So whether you're, in year 1, year 5, year 10, year 20, there's a lot of people out there that would attribute their success to sales and being a sales rep for somebody else. So let's get into the rundown. As of today, my name is Dylan. I am 27 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, but I am from San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio, Texas, known as Military City. My dad was Air Force as I was coming up. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and then started working later into our childhood. I am the oldest sibling, one of 2. My sister and I grew up with a decent amount of structure and accountability all throughout our lives, always held to a high standard. As soon as I started getting my first money in through allowances, I remember my dad making me log everything in a checkbook, which I couldn't even do today if I needed to. That was so long ago, back when physical checkbooks were a thing. So I was brought up in a really structured environment. Now, I always just naturally kind of did well in school without that much effort. I was like a B+, A- student. I'd take the advanced courses. And one of the most pivotal things that I did early on and stuck with for a really long time was getting into skateboarding. In first grade, I met my still to this day best friends who were all skateboarders, and I got into skateboarding that way. I stuck to skateboarding from like first grade all the way through college. It's like 15 plus years, and I'll still hit it every once in a while today, but it's a little bit different these days. Interestingly enough, skateboarding was hugely detrimental, but also positive in certain aspects when it came to my development as a young man. I became increasingly independent and introverted over the years through skateboarding, but I also became hyper aware and observant at the same time. When I was in high school, if you would have told me that sales was the vehicle that I would pursue and that would eventually change my life, I would laugh at you. I would think you're insane. So just for a little bit more context, in high school, I graduated magna cum laude. I worked like 30 hours per week from the age of 15. As soon as I can get a job, I did. So I've always kind of been a little bit responsible in that regard. Now, going into college wasn't really an option for me because my dad was in the Air Force. I had the opportunity to go for free. And at this time, I didn't really take it too seriously. I ended up going to University of Texas, San Antonio, which is the local Division I college. I got in with automatic admission for being top 25% of my class. My dad had gone there, and it was kind of a no-brainer. I had a steady job. All my best friends were in San Antonio. My dad had gone there. It just felt comfortable, and that's where I went. Now, in my first semester or 2, I studied architecture. Why did I study architecture? It kind of just came to a point where I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew what I liked doing, which was kind of being creative and building things. And yeah, I mean, I landed on architecture, but I didn't stick with architecture. After I realized that the average architect doesn't make that much money, and when they do start making money, it's a lot longer down the road than I was comfortable with, I switched out of that. And I went to construction science. At least with construction science, I knew I could go into project management. I could make $60,000 to $80,000 per year. At the time, for me, $80,000 per year was, I made it. Like, I couldn't even fathom $80,000 per year. Up until that point, I had maybe made $35,000 a year, maybe 30 max. A lot of the years not touching those numbers. So fast forward, again, still working all throughout college, just like I did high school, basically full-time hours. I graduated in 2020 with a 3.3-ish GPA. Now, actually, all throughout college, from my sophomore year to my senior year, I was trying to make money any way that I could, aside from working a nearly full-time job. Specifically in the online space, I got hooked into the e-com space in 2017. I tried e-commerce, I tried copywriting, I tried paid advertising, I tried theme pages. I also tried offline businesses, pressure washing, table making, mowed some lawns. I had minor success with every single one, but once I started to get to that point of like, okay, something has to give, either school, work, or the entrepreneurial endeavor, usually it was the entrepreneurial endeavor. In hindsight, with most of these business models that I was attempting, I lacked information or sometimes time, like I just mentioned. But yeah, I was just clawing my way up, trying to make it however I could. So there was this little worldwide event that happened in 2020 that made everybody wear masks on their face. And that was my second to last semester in school, and it changed everything. All the internships shut down. I needed an internship in order to graduate, which I had procrastinated because I had a job that I didn't mind. I was making good money at. Those jobs, by the way, when I was in high school, I started at a pizza shop, and I kind of just worked my way up into higher and higher earnings within the pizza industry. Like I jumped from a couple places, I jumped up a couple roles, and I was making, I think it was $16 an hour as like an assistant manager at this time, which again, in hindsight, not that much, but at the time when I started making $7.25 an hour minimum wage in 20, I don't even know when that was, when I was 15 years old, I didn't want to lose my 16 an hour. It may have been 18, but I think it was 16. So anyways, scrambling for an internship so I could graduate, I ended up with a roofing company. While in my last semester, I switched to this hybrid role. Well, previously I was doing project management, but I switched to this hybrid role of project management and estimating. I had learned both in school, so I was confident with that. I knew that the estimators were getting paid more. Project management was cool. It was the low-hanging fruit for people with the degree that I had. Only issue was I was in Central Texas, Central South Texas, depending on who you ask, and I didn't speak Spanish, and a lot of our crews spoke Spanish, not English. I had difficulty communicating with those guys. And so while I had gotten to learn the business pretty well and how to manage these jobs and, you know, how much stuff costs and what it takes to go into a successful job, the company was open to moving me over to estimating. After graduation, I went all in on estimating, dropped the project management. What gave me the confidence to do that, and I didn't even know at this point that estimating was sales, but I had to shadow the top guy one day, and I was like pretty unimpressed with how well I thought he was doing at this. It gave me a lot of confidence in myself. Watching him go into these houses and give these estimates and just kind of seeing how he went about it gave me a lot of confidence in myself that I could do the same, because he wasn't that good at it, but I knew he was making $100,000 per year. And again, going back, I thought 80,000 was like, dude, I made it. Like I'm set. This guy was making 100. So that gave me a little bit of confidence to really start to go and sell. And I remember my first sales interaction all by myself was for a little roof repair, really nice neighborhood, gated neighborhood, beautiful houses. And I think I left an estimate for $300. This homeowner, older, retired, again, they had money, nice cars out front. And I'm over here pitching a $300 roof repair as nervous as you could be. I discounted it and I still didn't close. I think they closed later, but not at the house. I remember feeling really upset that I didn't close that. And I just wish I could go reaffirm in hindsight that I was on the right path, because I had a lot of doubt after that. In order to turn this around and to give this a fair shot, once I realized that estimating was sales, because estimates don't sell themselves, okay? For any of you guys out there that think estimates sell themselves, they don't. You're wrong. Trust me. But anyways, I had to really kind of sit down and evaluate what it was that I was getting into and kind of prep myself for this journey. I had to completely disregard everything that I thought of myself prior if I wanted to do well in sales. I'm not introverted. I'm not shy. I'm not too young. I'm the expert that you guys called out. You called our company. I can help you solve your problem. Once I started to catch my groove as an estimator, they fired the guy that I used to shadow. And then I became the main guy. It was a small company. It had been around for a while, but they only had 2 salespeople. One of them was the owner. But watching them fire this guy that I was previously shadowing like a month or 2 prior gave me a lot of confidence, because, you know, this is a legit business with a lot of people that work for it that have families. I mean, I was the youngest one here by far. There's a lot of people with kids, families that rely on the salespeople to do their job. And when they fired the guy and put me as the number one revenue collector of the business, I was like, well, hey, that's got to be something good, right? They wouldn't have made such a move if they didn't believe I could do it. And I caught my groove, man. Within a month, 2 months, I was pretty much up to speed with where I was supposed to be. I don't remember if it was my first or second month, but I remember I closed like $60,000 in revenue, which was not like groundbreaking, but it was good. I mean, I think 6 or 20,000 of that was one roof, which is a pretty big roof in San Antonio, Texas. So I was catching my groove. Now let's fast forward a little bit. I became the best, man. I'm not ashamed to say it. I was obsessed. And this was about the time, a little bit before, where I had stopped really skateboarding, because a lot of my friends that I would skateboard with also got jobs. Some moved away. Life got busy. And as young professionals, we're focusing on our career. But I became obsessed. I was working 10, 12 hours a day. If I wasn't out in the field, I was on my laptop until the nighttime hours, sending out estimates, doing emails, doing follow-ups, cleaning out the CRM. I was doing everything that I could. And in my last 12 months with the company, they had brought on more salespeople, but I was the top guy in every single metric. I broke the 10-year standing company sales record. I won a trip to Vegas for my now fiance and I, all expenses paid. And I created close to the dream life that I had wanted. Roofing sales took me from $3,000 in my name and being an Amazon driver to making my first 6 figures plus. Roofing sales showed me what I was capable of, and it gave me confidence in my abilities. And more importantly, roofing sales showed me the life that sales could unlock for you when presented with the right opportunity. But in 2022, I started noticing that things were a little bit less than optimal with roofing sales. I had a geographic dependency, meaning our company was only in one city. It was only in San Antonio. And the fact that I had to drive to these houses to get on these roofs, get in these attics, talk to these homeowners, sit at their dinner table, could not go much outside of San Antonio. Despite it being a big city, I was still limited. And also, roofing sales was dangerous, man. Like getting up on old roofs to look at repairs, leaks, make estimates, getting in attics, it's dangerous. Okay, I had some close calls where it was a coin flip if what I was trying to do or the way that I was trying to go was going to result in me falling off a roof, sliding down a roof. I had some really close calls, man. And I had known people that were not as lucky, that had fallen off roofs, some of the actual roofers. So thankfully, in this time, I had built up the confidence in my ability as a sales professional, not just a roofing salesperson, but a sales professional. And I knew I could find success in a more optimal vehicle. I was at a crossroads, stay in roofing sales, continue making pretty much guaranteed money, and buy a house, which I was in the position to do so at a young age, which was awesome, or make a jump to a new industry, a more optimal industry. Mind you, I'm 23 or so at this time. The year that I quit, I was pacing about $180,000 on the year. That was like 5 months into it. Compared to that prior 2 years where I was an Amazon driver, my financial situation was night and day different. As far as I knew, compared to a lot of the people that I knew that I went to school with, even like some adults in my life, I was doing really well. Now, keeping my living expenses low, my rent was $600 per month. I don't know if that even exists anymore, but keeping my living expenses low and saving as much money as possible gave me the confidence to make the jump that I'm about to tell you about. The industry that I had been looking into, dating back to 2017, 2018, when I first got into online money, I had known about this industry. But again, I wasn't a salesperson, so I kind of just blew it off. But it was the remote 1099 high ticket sales industry, the remote closing industry. And while I was in roofing sales and I was starting to look at other options, I was looking at like tech sales, real estate, but I was still tapped into money Twitter. If you guys are listening to this and you know what money Twitter is, you're a real one. It's not what it used to be, but it's still a good place to be. But I was seeing people younger, a lot younger, and a lot less qualified do really awesome things through remote closing. And again, I'm not saying I got some ego, but I was just very confident in my ability to perform. And I was thinking, well, if these guys could do it, like, why wouldn't I be able to do it? So the transition from roofing sales to high ticket sales, which I made there was a little bit of an overlap there, but May was when I quit roofing sales. March was when I got into it. I had gone all in on social media, so I started tweeting a lot more. Like I said, I was kind of lurking on money Twitter, but I started tweeting because I knew that the good opportunities, you kind of had to be connected, and it was a lot easier if you could have them come inbound to you versus you going outbound and looking like a nobody, for the lack of a better term. I had joined communities. I joined some sales trainings. I ended up landing a part-time role that would allow me to close in the afternoons and evenings, Monday through Friday. In month 1 of my first part-time closing role, I had made just under 5K, and that was my sign to put in my 2 weeks notice at the roofing sales job. Again, I had money saved. I was confident in my ability. I saw that I could make 5K part-time. If not now, then when? That was the big idea that kept rolling through my mind. Now, it's funny because this role I just told you about, I was initially disqualified for, and it was because I didn't have any high-ticket sales experience. So what did I do? I somehow ended up on a closing trial, a 1-week trial with this team by posting my competence on social media, which was huge, following up multiple times on the interview, which nobody else did, low-hanging fruit, and overall being a solid candidate that interviewed well, even though I didn't have that remote experience they were looking for. And this is when that next chapter officially started. The chapter that propelled me into a more entrepreneurial season, a scrappier season. Without that short-term pay cut that I was able to stomach back in 2022, you would probably not be watching this video right now. Because of sales would not exist. After leaving roofing sales, I was super intentional about creating leverage with this new opportunity that I had gotten into. I'd been so locked in working from 7 to 7 most days with roofing sales, I kind of just wanted to breathe a little bit. So I had gone through some sprints with remote closing, 8 calls per day on my calendar, sometimes with 2. And while I was closing, I actually started helping these businesses with other things relating to their sales process, helping them build out setting teams, helping them recruit people, helping them train people, helping them implement lead scoring systems, helping them optimize calendars for the whole closing team, helping them work on pre-call assets and materials that make the sales calls easier. This is when I started earning some money on the side in the form of base pay or commissions, in addition to remote closing commissions. So for 2022, 2023, I was playing pretty much that game and the remote closing game at the same time. And I was getting results and I was leveraging into better and better opportunities anytime I could. Sometimes I was stacking multiple opportunities. I would stick with what served me and I would cut what didn't. And during this time, in hindsight, a lot of it I was kind of working part-time hours and earnings were fluctuating around like 7 to 10K per month. Some of these days I was working like 2 hours per day and I was able to sustain a 6-figure income doing that. I was negotiating commission percentages. I was negotiating priority on the calendars. I had built a small reputation on social media. I was creating leverage and building the life that I wanted with that leverage. I had years of living expenses in the bank. I was happy with this. I was spending time with friends, getting my health in order, getting tons of sun, hanging out at the pool. I was going on trips, hanging out with loved ones. I was living that remote lifestyle minus all the traveling, like to South America and that kind of stuff. This was a dream for me. I always grew up not really having a clear vision on like what I wanted to do for work, what I wanted my career to be, but I knew that I wanted to do what I wanted to do and not have to worry about the financial component and have the freedom and flexibility over my time. So that way, as long as the job is done, I can structure it however I want. Now, again, going all the way back into roofing sales, going to before roofing sales to the college days, I was on that money Twitter side of things. And I told you one of the first things I started doing was posting on social media. I was posting on social media while in roofing sales, and I was talking about roofing sales and sales in general. And I was documenting the transition from roofing to remote. And I grew to 4,000 followers pretty quickly. It was a lot easier to grow on Twitter back then, or X. And naturally, people were interested in what I was posting with being so transparent about the transition, the remote closing, the money, the lifestyle, all that. I was having a lot of one-on-one communication via DMs, or sometimes I'd jump on Zoom calls with people, showing them how they could do the same. But this got to the point of taking more effort and attention than I would have liked on a one-on-one basis. So eventually, the Serial Sales Community was born, the same business that sponsored this podcast just 3 years later. So again, identifying another point of leverage, I started promoting this every single day. It was a Slack group for $9 per month. It was really just a big group chat where we'd share some jobs, we'd help each other out, get connected, jump on a call once or twice a week. There was nothing special. There was no course material. We started getting more and more members, and I started making the product better so that the average result was higher. And over the course of the first year, year and a half, we went from $9 per month to $19 per month to $27 per month to $35 per month to $47 per month, or lifetime options. But then I had a realization. The low ticket model didn't really give me the resources that I needed to make this as good as I wanted it to be for every single person coming in, because I didn't have the money to hire a team, and it wasn't enough money for me to divert my attention away from being a closer or working with these teams in other capacities. So I took everything I knew, turned it into a mid-ticket offer, slapped a guarantee on it, and relaunched. We started selling at a 2K price point. This whole time, still building on social media, still closing, working with these companies, just slowly shifting my focus towards the community as it starts to make more money. So the community starts to make around $15,000 per month over time. This is probably a year and a half or so, and maybe a little bit more than a year and a half. And that's enough for me to really shift my priority into that and cut out the other stuff. This was in Q3 of 2023. Before going all in on that, I had started getting into the sales management space. The last team that I individually managed was a 10-person sales team in this high-ticket industry. So I then focused on the community, but then I went a little bit harder on like paid recruiting for these companies and working with the companies a little bit more to monetize both sides, working with the sales reps and the companies as well. It worked short term, but it was a really difficult relationship to manage all of that together. And I didn't really like it so much. So we stopped doing that. But in October 2023, I had bought a course to learn paid ads. And that's when the community started to reach new heights. We started charging more. The bar was raised. All throughout this time, we're raking in testimonials. So many people coming in, landing jobs, getting paid, quitting their corporate jobs, and building their dream life. It was extremely fulfilling. It still is to this day. I had started my podcast, the Sales Bro podcast, back in 2022, just to further connect with more people. Again, always looking for leverage. One thing you should take away from this is look for leverage, grab onto it, make the most of it. But anyways, one of my earliest guests was another sales guy who had done the same thing as me, did well in corporate sales, quit, went all in high ticket, built his dream life, made a lot of money, and he was absolutely killing it. He was one of the top guys in the space. Anyways, we reconnected in late 2023, and we were both in a different stage of life. We had been there, done that with remote closing. We were looking for the next thing with leverage. And sales management, given we had both done it individually, seemed to be that next thing. So what did we do? Well, before we started the sales agency that I'm about to tell you about, we started another business with somebody else, really being in charge of like the sales side of it. It wasn't just sales management, but we were like a little bigger piece as a like ownership stake. And we collected 6 figures in 60 days from scratch. Brand new company, scaled it with 2 other people, including us. And we ended up not really being in love with that particular business model. So we cut ties and focused on what we really wanted to do, which was that fractional sales management and consulting agency. In Q4 of 2023, we signed our first client with that agency. It was an old boss of my partner who had an open sales management role, and we actually split it down the middle. I think it was 5%. We each got 2.5%. Not that much money, but we knew we were building a case study, and they had a big launch coming. He was the day-to-day sales manager, handling the training with the team, the client communication, just all the front-facing stuff. And I was more on the back end, working operations, building infrastructure, streamlining workflows. So while we were each not making as much as a full sales manager, we were each not doing the full sales management role, but we just wanted to get really good at the part that we enjoyed doing. And again, this was a case study for us. We had a big launch with this client. They had a lot of people hyping it up, and we did $400,000 in month 1. We recruited the whole sales team of 7, and this gave us a lot of confidence in our ability to rinse and repeat. Over the course of 2024, we did this many times over in all different industries. Well, mostly all in the high ticket, but all different types of businesses. Some larger, some smaller, some ongoing, some were just launch focused. We were helping people with recruiting, consulting, and other odds and ends sales work. We ended up building a serious done-for-you sales operation that still runs to this day, but I sold my 50%. More on that soon. We were getting connected to some of the biggest players in the space, building partnerships worth millions. We built this agency from just us two to a team of 30 in under a year. In 2024, this agency did just shy of $3 million in billable commission. In Q1 of 2025, which is not long from the date that I'm recording this right now, I personally hit a wall. With fast scale comes fast responsibility. From the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, and even in the middle of the night, I was getting blown up everywhere. Slack, WhatsApp, emails. I was swarmed with notifications with a bunch of different sales teams, a lot of people relying on me, on us. And while we had built these awesome high functioning sales teams, sales management is not an easy job. It's not easy for one account, much less many accounts. So I was getting pulled in a million different directions, and I just burnt out. This business was and still is on an amazing trajectory. But when thinking ahead, I didn't see many realities in which I got to continue running it without being very involved. And again, my whole thing going from pizza shop to running a sales agency with 30 people has been leverage, identify the leverage, take advantage of it. Then the next thing, then the next thing, then the next thing. The sales agency taught me a lot about what I did and didn't like out of certain businesses. So just like my years of financial runway and skill set had given me the confidence to go from roofing sales to 1099 remote sales, my network, social profiles, and the sales community that I still run to this day gave me the confidence to step away from this sales agency, this agency that was no longer serving me in the way that I wanted it to. So in February 2025, I sold my 50% of that business. The month that I left, we had a top 2 revenue month. And the month after I left, they had a record month. So it was pretty cool to see them stay on that track throughout that transition. So that leads us to today. Over the last 2 months, 3 months more like it, I've been silently working on Because of Sales in the background. I knew the message that I wanted to get out there, and it was just about figuring out the best format to do that. I've decided leading with the newsletter is the strategy that we're going to run with. but we're also going to run these long form podcasts. We're going to turn it into short form, mid form, and more long form, put it everywhere all over the internet because we need people to know that sales can change their life very fast. All that being said, you guys could imagine from being a high paid sales rep to working with other high paid sales reps to managing a bunch of high paid sales reps, you can build leverage very quickly and make a lot of money. That's how I became a millionaire. I didn't become a millionaire because I was selling directly one-to-one for the past 5 years. I became a millionaire because I worked myself into the position to have other really skilled professionals sell on my behalf. Now, I'm not saying you can't become a millionaire being the person who sells. I'll probably have one on in the next 2, 3, 4 episodes here. There are a lot of self-made millionaires. One thing you don't want to underestimate, I have a connection that I made recently, same age as me. He's just been a decently paid professional in a sales industry, different industry. But at 26, he's a millionaire, and he's never made more than $150,000 per year. He's just been doing the same thing for 7 years, investing his money, and he's a millionaire. It doesn't just have to be through sales. It doesn't have to be running teams, running multiple sales teams, but think about where you can find leverage in what you're doing, whether it's selling something more expensive or selling something that has a higher hit rate than what you're selling, a higher close rate, a higher show rate. Can you get into management? Can you start monetizing other aspects of what you're doing or what you know how to do with the companies that you work with? So you could imagine when we have 30 highly paid sales professionals working under us, you make a lot of money really fast. And so while that was awesome with the agency, I got to a point again where I was like, hey, money's cool, but I'm not just here for money. I want to live the life that I want to live as well. So I want to talk now about how I figured sales to be the best vehicle and why, if you're watching this and you're not yet in sales, you should think about some of these things. And if you are already in sales, this should reaffirm what you already know. But sales, guys, is so low barrier to entry. You don't need a degree in many cases, not many certifications. It depends on what industry, but usually not any certifications, which means less debt, less time investment. The time to ROI, or the time to start earning money, is a lot shorter than the average high paid industry. Leads me into this next thing, which is fast earning potential. There is a direct link between your effort and commission, which was definitely extremely attractive to me as someone who's always kind of been a high performer. It's not that I don't like working with a team. I obviously worked with a large team in this agency, but if I can have less variability in the outcome and I can control more of that, I prefer to do that personally. Another thing you might want to consider is the rate at which you can increase your income. Going from one opportunity to another, to another, to another. Next thing you know, you went from $80,000 a year to $350,000 per year. You can do that really fast, really, really fast. You don't have to climb the corporate ladder in some of these roles. Some of them you have to, some of them you don't have to, which allows you to just make more sooner. In some of these roles, you do get a lot of schedule flexibility. Control when you work, control how you work. As long as you get the outcome, you have more autonomy throughout your day. Some of these roles are going to give you location flexibility. That was a huge thing for me when I got into the remote sales space over roofing sales, was I could do it from anywhere in the world. One of the first trips that I took after getting into remote sales was to Denver, Colorado with some of my childhood best friends, the ones I was skateboarding with. And I remember making money on autopilot while in Denver because payment plans were hitting. I had taken time off, but I was still making money. I was having payment plans hit. I was getting commissions paid out. Life was good. This is another thing that was really attractive to me with sales, is all the different industries you could sell into. So think about, if you go to school for 8 years to be a dentist and you get burnt out on being a dentist, there's probably some other things you can go do. But if you're so down that rabbit hole of like the dental industry, there's not as much opportunity as, say, someone who's just really, really highly skilled at sales. That person can go sell houses. They could go sell cars. They can go sell boats, apartments, high ticket online items. They can go sell phones. They could go sell watches. They could go sell construction equipment, medical device, dental stuff. Like everything is being sold, and there's usually someone managing that transaction. So if you just get really good at that skill, I mean, there's endless opportunity. A lot of these opportunities are going to give you an uncapped earning potential. So again, however hard you want to work, you will be compensated in direct proportion to that typically. There are a lot of transferable skills that you pick up while in sales. And honestly, I didn't talk about it much, but sales turned me into the best version of myself. I definitely went through the mud a little bit. not that much sleep, too much caffeine, letting my health go in directions I didn't want it to. But if I zoom out and I look at over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, like how much it's made me more confident in myself, talking with other people, engaging in conversations in a different manner than I would back when I was the shy, skinny, introverted kid, which I'm still kind of that, but like I'm more of a chameleon these days, That's one of the best things that I've gotten out of sales. Another thing is sales jobs are in high demand always. And if they're not in high demand in your industry, go to another. Things always need to be sold, whether the market is hot or whether it's not. If you can't sell stuff in the US, sell stuff in another country. Do it remote. There is always something to be sold. And that is one of the best parts about sales. So those are some reasons why I just kind of identified sales as the best vehicle. Not going into that much debt, not spending so much time on school, fast time to earning outside of school, flexibility in the market, a lot of job opportunity, building a skill set that builds me into the best version of myself. It's kind of hard to argue with. So now you guys have the story of how I went from Amazon driver in college to leveraging into roofing sales, remote sales, building a sales community, building a sales agency, selling the sales agency, and now focusing on Because of Sales, all in that process, becoming a millionaire in under 5 years from having $3,000 in my name in a 350 square foot studio apartment in San Antonio, Texas. Now I want to talk about a few different concepts that helped me get here. And I want to try to pair these with real life examples where I can. The first one I have on here, and these were things that I had pretty good conviction in when I was coming up. And so I was trying to think back over the last 5 years to what really served me. Like what beliefs did I hold that served me in this process? And the first one I put on here was studying different people for different things. The reality is it's really hard to find someone who is exactly who you want to be in all aspects of their life. I know those people exist, but I didn't personally know any of them. The person that you take your health and fitness advice from is not oftentimes the person you take your financial advice from. The person you take your, educational advice on isn't the same person that maybe you take your career advice on. So there's some really awesome people, especially on the internet these days, but just because they're really good at one thing, they're really right about one thing, does not mean they're right about everything. So just remember, not everybody's perfect, and hardly anybody is actually perfect. So find the qualities that you like, take from that. Don't believe everything that they say. The next thing is the path that intimidates you the most is probably the one you should take. And guys, these aren't going to all be groundbreaking, but these are beliefs that I held coming up that served me. And so I want to share them with you guys. Sales was scary. Sales was the last thing that I wanted to do. It would have been more comfortable for me to go to study for a law degree, for a medical degree. But as I found myself in a sales job, before I knew it was a sales job, I was terrified and I could have backed down, but I didn't because I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Jumping into remote sales was scary because I thought I had the voices in my head telling me I'm an idiot for leaving $180,000 out of school like that. And turns out it was the right path. So the third thing here is if it doesn't serve you and your goals, you don't have to do it. So there's a few instances of where this was real for me, but one in particular that comes to mind is pressures to go back to school for a master's degree. A master's degree wasn't going to serve me in the way that others thought it might have. Now, there's certain people in your life that they want to look out for you. They want to make sure you're safe versus thriving, right? But my personal experience is, some people again are right about certain things and they're not right about other things. And so there was a lot of pressure, especially because my school was paid for by the government to go back and get a master's degree. And in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't do that. I was already making more without a master's degree than what I could make with a master's degree in that industry before 15 years down the line. So yeah, if it doesn't serve you, you don't have to do it. Next thing, fourth bullet point here is get out of the echo chamber. It is really easy to grow up in a certain environment around certain people. This could be controlled and not controlled, and just assume that what you know and what you've been exposed to is true. It is true for everybody and it is the reality of the world. But the fact of the matter is that is not true. If 80% of your time is around people that live a life that you don't want, it's going to be really hard for you to convince yourself that the life that you do want is out there. So the echo chamber, it can be your hometown, it can be a friend group, it can be a lot of different things. It could be people you work with, but dreams die in the echo chamber. You have to get out if you feel like you're in one. Number 5 is you hardly score on defense, play offense. Throughout the last 5 years, I have played offense aggressively. My defense is saving money. Saving money. Until like 2 years ago, I didn't even really spend that much. Now I spend a little bit more because I'm confident in my ability to earn, but I stayed down until I was up. A lot of people will say that you save yourself to $1 million. If you just save, if you put it in your 401k, and over the course of 20 years, like if you don't touch it, and when you're 60 or when you're 65, you can take it out and it's going to be worth $1.3 million. Like, sure, I mean, that is factual. It will be worth $1.3 million, but like, what are you going to do with it then? And what if the dollar collapses? But yeah, I mean, just think of any sports team ever, any good sports team. Defense is really important because if you don't have that, like, you don't have as much runway. But, the Patriots didn't win all those Super Bowls without Tom Brady, So play offense, guys. Be smart, but play offense. Be aggressive. You can fail 5 times over, 10 times over, and play offense, and you'll still get ahead of the people around you. Number 6, dead weight stunts your progress greatly. Cut it. This could be a relationship. This could be a job, something that is holding you back from where you need to be. It is especially hard to do this when you have an emotional connection to that thing. So I always tell people in the high ticket space specifically that you are a contractor. Don't get an emotional connection to someone who pays you $0 when business is slow, if you're commission only. If you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't believe in you, doesn't believe in your goals, if you're in a household with people that don't support you, I mean, unless your goals are just delusional, you got to be aware enough. You got to be smart enough and aware enough to understand if they are delusional or not. But the dead weight, it's like rowing upstream, man. It just makes it so much harder to get where you want to go. Get rid of it. Number 7, just because you can buy it 10 times over in cash, it doesn't mean you need to or should. I've bought a few nice things since I started making good money, and each time I could buy it at minimum 10 times over in cash, oftentimes far more than that. I know a lot of people out there that run into good money, or don't run into, but they work for it, and they get in that position of making really awesome money, and they consider buying a crazy car, moving somewhere that's expensive, buying watches. You don't need to do that. I didn't do that stuff for a really long time. And honestly, now, I mean, I love the car that I drive, but like I have nice watches. And if I didn't have them, like I wouldn't feel any certain type of way. So I think it is something that a lot of people just need to experience. And then once you realize that the material stuff doesn't serve you in the way that you want it to, it'll make more sense. So I'm not saying don't buy nice things, but nobody's saying you have to if you don't like that stuff. Number 8 here is avoid frivolous debt. Momentum requires size. Build it ASAP. One of the reasons why I was able to do what I have done is because I had the peace of mind with the runway that if shit hit the fan, I would be able to figure it out. If you don't have that confidence financially and in your own skill set that you will be able to figure it out, even if a doomsday situation came, you are not going to build momentum. So frivolous debt, like plane tickets, they let you put plane tickets on Affirm now, or concert tickets, shopping, racking up a credit card and not paying it off and letting the interest roll over month. It's stupid. I'm not going to say I'm Dave Ramsey over here. There's definitely advantageous ways to use debt, especially depending on what rates are looking like and your cash flow and cash and all that. But stupid consumer debt, it's stupid. Don't do it. Number 9, the perspectives that you gain from both the highs and the lows are very important. If you are steady, stagnant every day, all day long, I mean, while that may be a manageable state, you're lacking a lot of perspective. And I think one of the biggest reasons I've been able to get where I am is because I understand and evaluate perspective at a self-proclaimed high level. And I'm aware of the highs and the lows. I've been in the highs and the lows. I've lost a lot of money. I've had a client not pay a $250,000 invoice. I've also made a lot of money. So seeing, the bad, the worst of the bad stuff and the best of the best stuff, it's really important in building your character, building thick skin. So, on a daily basis, you can be up and down, and that's normal. But like managing that as if it were a steady state is really important so you don't make stupid decisions. So those are some general concepts that I can say confidently I held throughout my time coming up. Now I want to get into some concepts that I'd reaffirm in hindsight, meaning I wish I could go back and tell my former self that by doing this, I was on the right path. These were concepts to me at the time that I thought were right, but I wasn't really sure. And maybe because of that, I didn't lean into them in the way that I should have. The first one being keep paying for access to people ahead of you. Pay for masterminds, pay for groups, pay to be around professionals, pay to get into rooms. I kind of knew that was true and I would do that. But if I would have done it more, there's a chance I would have gotten here faster with less loss, losing less money, being more profitable. The second one is your network is your net worth. Shocker. That is like the corniest one in the book, but it is so true, guys. When I moved to Austin from San Antonio, in San Antonio, I knew nobody who did this online stuff. There was a couple of e-com guys, but I couldn't really relate to them. When I moved to Austin, man, my income skyrocketed and I was already making good money in San Antonio, but I got around people that were like me that moved to Austin because they were trying to get out of the echo chamber. They moved to Austin for business connections. They moved to Austin for a bigger, better, more prosperous life. Get around your people. It is very important. I'm not saying you got to move out of the hometown. If your hometown is New York City, if it's Austin, if it's Chicago, Miami, I'm not saying you got to get out of there, but there are a lot of benefits to getting out of there. Number 3, fail faster. There were a lot of times previously where I would hold on to business models, ideas, funnels, team members, and I would just hold on to them because I was like, what if it turns around? What if it gets better? Especially in college, I was telling you guys about my early online business days. I would like run a lot of these businesses pretty mediocre until I just got to the point of, hey, I can't do this anymore unless I want to give it more time or if I want to invest into this. So I would just say fail faster, cut your losses sooner. Number 4 of concepts I would reaffirm in hindsight is nobody is coming to save you. And I kind of knew this. Once I started to gain perspective around what it looks like to be successful, how these people are getting success. But I thought it was important to include this here, and I would reaffirm it in hindsight, especially as a young guy, man. You think, if this doesn't work out, like, it's okay. I can go back to my parents' house. And it's true. But if the intention is to play offense and to create a life that you enjoy, there's nobody that's going to build that for you. There's someone who can build the defensive life for you. It's like, oh yeah, all I need to do is make $3,000 and I can live with my parents and I got a free place to stay and I can survive. And like, there are people who will save you to that point, but there's nobody who's going to save you into becoming a millionaire unless you want to live with your parents until you're 50, 60 years old. So yeah, nobody's coming to save you. You have to do it yourself. The hard decisions are not going to be made by themselves. They're not going to be made by other people. The things you're afraid of, you need to attack them head on. The path that intimidates you is the one you should choose. Number 5, the goalposts will always move no matter what. So, the easy one here is financial, guys. When I had my first $10,000 a month in roofing sales, it was electric for 24 hours. When I had my first $100,000 a month in online business, it was awesome. And the $200,000 a month, awesome. But I don't know. I don't, besides making just like a normal high income, it's a very, I feel like a destructive thing to look towards. And not to say I don't want to make a lot of money and I don't want to grow businesses and see records. That's awesome. It's the high highs, right? If you can't sustain the not high highs, you're going to be in a tough spot. The goalposts are always going to move. It's the same with relationships, with personal development. I started running a year ago, ran my first marathon, 3:35 pace, which is pretty decent. And now I want to run a sub 3-hour marathon. So they'll always move. And being content with the fact that they'll always move has really served me. I am extremely content with the idea that I can always be better at everything. And the pursuit of being better and being the best is what is important. I've bought, like I told you guys, I've bought some nice watches. Pulling it out of the box, putting it on, wearing it out to dinner the first night is awesome. And then a week later, it's not that I don't like them, but what's next, So be content with the fact that the goalposts will move. The last thing that I would reaffirm in hindsight, most people aren't doing as well as they want you to think. I know a lot of people, maybe it's just this online space that I'm in. Maybe it's sales reps. A lot of people out there, man, they have less than you probably think. Money's the easy one, but they have less friends. They have less confidence in themselves. They are less at peace with themselves. They think more highly of you than you probably anticipate. As individuals, we're like hyperly critical of ourselves, and we think people are watching us and looking at us. And if we mess something up, it's going to be the biggest thing ever. And just realize that other people think the same exact thing. But anyways, man, take what you guys hear and see out there from people that you don't really know with a grain of salt, because a lot of these guys out here are not who you think they are. And that being said, there's a lot of good people too. Now, here's some practical tips specifically for the younger guy, the one who's looking to start to build that snowball, gain that momentum, build the size so they can start the exponential growth. Here are practical tips for the new people, the new sales reps, the aspiring sales reps. Here are things that I did that I would say you should do as well to build the momentum. One, get a sales job yesterday and become obsessed. If you're watching this podcast, I would assume you're at least on that track to do that. Become obsessed. Make it your life. I would not be where I am today if I did not become, I was insanely obsessed with my sales job. Become obsessed. It's how you get good. It's how you make a lot of money. It's how you build momentum. As a young guy, oftentimes you don't have much else to do besides become obsessed with something. Make it a productive thing. Next, don't spend more than $1,200 per month on rent. Now, that's a specific number. Why is it so specific? I don't know. That just kind of sounded like, all right, dude, if you're spending more than that, you could probably be spending less. I spent $600 per month on a studio apartment, 350 square feet in the hood in San Antonio. This is downtown in right next to a food bank. The apartment was nice, but tough area. Now, don't put yourself in danger, but find people to live with. Rent is the number one thing that if you can push out you paying a lot of money on rent, you'll just be able to save more. And if you're not putting that money towards things that make you more money, at least you're building runway to make more aggressive moves in your career. Number 3, practical tips for new people. Use a credit card like it's a debit card now, especially if you're young. Like if you're 18, start building your credit now. It's going to come in handy a ton when you start to go get loans for investments to offset taxes. Also, when you start to buy things, if you want to buy a house, buy a car, good credit helps you get better rates so you don't have to put all your cash into it, so you can stay more liquid, have more peace of mind, so you can play offense. Use a credit card, pay it off every month. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. Number 4, practical tips. Shitty cars will crush you, so get a slightly less shitty car. I had a string after my first car was gifted to me between my grandpa and my parents. After that, I went on a spree of kind of shitty cars until I got one that was less shitty. And the amount of money and time and agony that I had to go through because I got the cheaper car because it was more affordable. At that time, I was paying everything in cash, which I regret. I don't regret, but I would have done it differently in the past. So any kind of car that's in the I don't even know what these cars cost these days because this was like 10 years ago for me. But any kind of car that's sub $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 is probably going to give you problems. I would pay a little bit more for the peace of mind, which is alluding to one of our future things, to just not have to worry about that. There were a lot of expensive repairs that I made on cars that I didn't have much long after that. I paid $2,500 to replace the transmission on a car that I ended up selling a couple months later. It's just how it went. I've had cars with the engine overheats, cars completely okay, engine overheats, had to sell for pennies on the dollar. Just get a slightly less shitty car. Number 5, practical tips for the new people. Make your hobbies healthy and affordable. This sounds really basic, but if your hobbies can be gym, this is hypothetical. If your hobbies could be gym, swimming, running, all fairly affordable things that get you in a better physical and mental headspace than a lot of other things versus your hobbies being video games, smoking weed, and going to the bars. I mean, I'm not saying don't ever do those things. I've done those things quite a bit. But if you can make your habits healthy and affordable, one, you're going to be in better shape. You're going to be in a better financial position. You're going to be in a better headspace. This helps you build momentum. Playing offense without a clear image and clear thoughts is very difficult. So that's one thing that I wish I started doing sooner. Number 6, practical tips for new people. Minimize video games and late nights. I used to love video games. I still love video games. But I used to stay up really late, man. And I would wake up early as well, especially in college. And I was like a zombie. And I would just get really addicted to caffeine. And through roofing sales, same thing. addicted to caffeine, not good sleep. So, video games specifically, playing with your friends late at night, you will realize that you've wasted a lot of potential. You've wasted a lot of time, and your life can be a video game. I know that's kind of corny, but your life can be a video game if you turn it into that. If you start leveling up your character in all aspects. Number 7, practical tips. Stay away from stupid people. Stupid people get you in stupid situations, which create a stupid reality for you against your will. So I'm talking about people that, maybe after school, they start heading down the wrong path and doing things that can get them in trouble, that can get you in trouble if you're associated with them. Those people, hopefully they turn it around and wish for the best and, help those people if you can. But don't let those people drag you down, especially if you have a picture in your mind of where you want to be and what it takes to get there. I've had friends personally that I've had to cut off or I just kind of don't really associate with anymore that kind of went on to do stupid things. And I mean, it sucks. It sucks to see that you want all your friends to win and come up with you and all that great stuff. You can't let their decisions negatively impact your life. Number 8, practical tips. It is okay to spend more for peace of mind. So there are certain things. When I upped my apartment from the $600 per month to $1,400 between two people, so it was $700 for me, plus utilities and Wi-Fi and all that. That was a big move, and I was afraid I wasn't going to have enough money to afford it. Even though I had made a lot of money in roofing sales, it was just like because I had never spent that much before. So that gave me peace of mind because we moved to an awesome part of the city. When I got my first reliable car, I got more peace of mind, and peace of mind helped me build momentum. Spending on good quality food gave me peace of mind that my health was going to be in order. But yeah, generally it's okay within reason to spend more for peace of mind as you are coming up. Once you have came up, quote unquote, obviously peace of mind. Like I spend a lot now to save time, save money, save bandwidth. So it's okay to do that as you're coming up. Number 9, practical tips. Investing is stupid before 100K liquid. And I know this is a kind of a hot take, maybe, with that specific number. Honestly, it's a little bit stupid after 100K, but it depends what your goal is with the investing. So if you're as a young man or woman who's looking at sales as a vehicle for them, what you can do with your active income is so much more significant than what you can do with 100K liquid. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't invest that. I'm not saying you should have that in a savings account that gives you less than 1% return, but you shouldn't divert your attention so much trying to hit some type of home run play with this 100K, because the reality is in order to hit those home run plays, you're exposing yourself to more risk than you probably want to. And you should just stay focused on what you know works, which is a high paying sales career, at least for the first 2, 3, 4 years. So investing is stupid before 100K liquid. I'll stand by that one. The last one, $3 coffee is inconsequential. And actually maybe I should update this with inflation. $5 coffee is inconsequential. If that poses a problem in your mind, the coffee is not the problem. The amount of money that you make is the problem, and your confidence in your ability to continue to make that amount of money. I could buy $5 coffee back when I was, a sales rep. I could buy a $5 coffee every single day, and it would not really make much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. So those little charges, like a snack here, a protein bar here, a coffee here, me personally, I had a difficult time like getting used to that. But now, I mean, I tell my friends, I tell my fiance, I can't leave the apartment for more than half a day and not spend like $50 on food, gas, going somewhere, getting coffee. So $3 coffee is inconsequential. If you're hanging out with people that are nagging you for a $3 coffee, those people are your echo chamber. Those people are your dead weight. So let them know, hey, stop being like that, or I'm out of here. Last thing, guys, here, my regrets. I don't have too many regrets, but I have 2 here. And one of my regrets is doing things because other people wanted me to do them. There was just little things. There's nothing super monumental in my life where I was like, man, I really regret doing that. But it was just little decisions that I would make. Like instead of working or instead of building that business, I would go to the bars, or I would go do this with this person that I didn't really like. So one of my biggest regrets is just not being more firm with what I wanted to do and actually executing on that. The other regret here is misrepresenting myself towards others and putting that label on myself of like, the introvert, like the guy that doesn't talk to people. Because in reality, I'm completely fine talking to people that I don't know. I'm completely fine going up and talking to strangers now. But back then, like I was in my own echo chamber. That wasn't me. I couldn't do that. It was so uncomfortable for me because I made it uncomfortable. And so also in this misrepresentation of myself, like people would see that I thought of myself that way, and then I would be limited in the opportunities that came to me and the connections that came to me. There was so much stuff that I missed out on because I had given myself these labels that just did not serve me. And, I eventually got out of that and got where I needed to be. And that's why Because of Sales is here. But I feel like I could have gotten here faster. So those are my two things. Don't do things just because other people want you to, and don't misrepresent yourself towards others. So, guys, this has been the first podcast edition of Because of Sales, a media company where we show you what sales can unlock in your life if you get into the right opportunity. This channel, this company, everything we talk about is going to be about unlocking maximum leverage using sales as the vehicle. We will help you get better at sales. We will help you land better sales jobs, but ultimately we're not in sales to be salespeople. We're in sales to build the life that we want. Again, this podcast is going to be a lot different than the others. And the others, we're going to have guests on. We're going to get a lot of cool insight into other industries. So if you're looking into other ones, you're looking for a different perspective so you can better evaluate where you're at and what your next moves are. Stay tuned. And again, guys, if you are not subscribed to the newsletter, go down below. First link in the description, becausefsales.com/subscribe. Get on the newsletter. I'm going to be giving breakdowns of all these long form podcasts in addition to an opportunity for you to get featured. So if you're watching this right now and you have an awesome story about how sales changed your life and helped you build the life that you want, I would love for you to come tell it. So in the description, we'll have the form for you to fill out there to get featured on the podcast and the newsletter both. And in the newsletter this week, we are talking about some really cool AI stuff, some really scary AI stuff. There's some memes in here. We got some cool tools, some underrated YouTube channels, how to sell to rich people, why nobody takes you seriously when you talk. A lot of cool stuff that is relevant across industries. So guys, thank you for tuning in to the first episode of the Because of Sales podcast. I've been able to build my dream life because you guys support me and because I put my head down and work towards it. And I'm forever grateful for that. And I'm so excited for what this is going to be. Because of Sales is the business model that I've identified to be the one that really goes where I want it to. And so I want to see this through. I want to build it into something awesome. If you guys are familiar with Morning Brew, think Morning Brew, but for sales and a little bit different. Anyways, guys, all the links below in the description. I appreciate you watching and we'll see you next week. Peace.